Over a century after the vanishing of the Virgulda 68 on the continent, the British finally established the first truly permanent European settlement on Australia only in 1788 over on the complete other side of the continent around modern-day Sydney with around 1,300 people. At the time, the Aboriginal population of the continent was likely only somewhere around 650,000. Which was pretty much the entire population of Australia as a whole. To put that into perspective, every other inhabited continent on the planet had vastly more people than that back in 1788. Asia already had more than 650 million people, around 1,000 times the population of Australia. While Europe had nearly 150 million, Africa had 85 million, and the Americas had around 20 million. Australia therefore began the modern era of industrialization from a far lower population base than any other of Earth's inhabited continents, and since population growth tends to be exponential, Australia has been lagging behind the rest for centuries. It would take Australia more than a century of history, not until the year 1906, to finally surpass the population of the United States back in 1788. And by 1906, America's population was already pushing 90 million. For most of Australia's history, immigration came almost entirely from just a single source: the British Isles. Following the discovery of gold on the continent in 1851, a massive gold rush to Australia ensued that saw around 2% of the entire population of the British Isles emigrate to Australia throughout the decade of the 1850s and more than doubled the Australian population almost overnight. But Australia struggled to attract large numbers of immigrants from Europe afterwards, because it was heavily competing for them with more attractive countries in the Americas like the United States, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina, who were much closer to Europe geographically and were thus generally cheaper and quicker for Europeans to emigrate to. It didn't help that beginning in 1901, the Australian government enacted a policy that would artificially reduce their numbers of immigrants to the continent for decades: the racist White Australia policy, which restricted immigration to only people of white, European ancestry, and initially gave overwhelming preference to migrants coming specifically from Britain. As a result, the flow of immigrants to the continent remained only a trickle of people for decades across the early 20th century, while at the same time, millions of immigrants were arriving in the United States every couple of years.